presentations. The first would be Lauren and Natividad. And then just as a precursor, we're going to have 10 minutes to present and then 4 minutes for Q&A following that. So Elena over there, she's going to go ahead and put up 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute when you have those respective times left for your presentation, okay? So anytime you're ready, we'll go ahead and get the stopwatch started, and good luck.
All right. All right, hello everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Lauren Natividad, and I'm a fourth-year chemical engineering student here at Cal Poly. I'd first like to start off with thanking everybody who's participated in this program and making it happen. I'd also like to thank my mentor, Dr. Pablo Benalcazar, for putting in this time this summer and helping me out with this project. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, I'd first like to introduce you all to some background regarding energy poverty in Mexico. So energy poverty is a term used to describe persons currently experiencing energy or a lack of electricity where they live. These are people living without access to electricity. As it currently stands, about 7.2% of all Mexican households, which equates out to 2.17 million people, currently do not have access to electricity. Following this, about 77.6% of indigenous people living in Mexico experience multidimensional poverty, including energy poverty and different levels of inaccessibility to education and inadequate housing. And it goes to show that 62% of these indigenous persons happen to live in rural areas. And by rural areas, we mean remote areas without access to electricity. At the same time, while this is all happening, the Mexican government has tried to make a substantial improvement in their energy sector by transforming all of the energy that they're creating into renewable, usable energy. In 2015, the Mexican government passed the Energy Transition Law, which mandates that 30% of Mexico's energy must come from renewable sources by 2021 and 35% by 2024. Now, this progress has been pretty steady. Between the years of 2019 and 2020, renewable energy production in Mexico has increased about 4%, from 24% to about 28%. And about 8% of this actually all comes from the Yucatan Peninsula, where there have been multiple wind turbine fields that have sprung up. Now, in conducting my research, I was posed with two very interesting topics. The first being the lack of energy towards it that indigenous persons are currently experiencing, and the second being the push for renewable energy by the Mexican government. And I found myself asking, how is it that we have a whole government here trying to increase renewable energy production, while at the same time there's a whole population within this country that do not have access to electricity? And the solution to this problem can be solved by creating an off-grid renewable energy system to try to combat both the energy poverty situation and to increase renewable energy exportation in Mexico. So with that being said, our case study brings us to the small town of La Noria in Quintana Roo, Mexico. This town is about 3 hours south of Cancun, for any of you who are familiar with that location. And it occupies about 20 small homes with about 50 residents living inside of this small village. The residents that live here are from indigenous Mayan ancestry, and they've been trying to talk to the government for several years now in hopes to try to get electricity installed in their location. However, this attempt has failed, and as a result, there's still no electricity in La Noria. The approach to this problem, and to try to help the residents of La Noria, as previously mentioned, can be found in a hybrid renewable energy system, otherwise known as an HRES. A hybrid renewable energy system is a PV array connected with a wind turbine, connected with a lithium-ion battery that is also connected with a diesel generator. For the purpose of my research, I decided to omit the diesel generator in order to ensure that there was more renewable energy and less petroleum energy exportation. Now, not all hybrid renewable energy systems are optimal. The best way to kind of explain this is that the process of optimization isn't within the model itself. You're optimizing the application that the model is going to be applied for. So for example, if you're going to buy a car, you want to buy a car that has the highest mileage or miles, and the lowest amount of cost. Now, this can be represented as an objective function, where the objective of the purpose of your model is to try to minimize the cost. The objective function is what's being minimized in our case, and since money is always a problem, similar to buying a car, we are trying to decrease the total life cycle cost of our model here. The total life cycle cost will be explained in further slides. But as you can see here, the objective function is subjected to different parameters and constraints when creating a hybrid renewable energy system, because there are so many technological aspects around that system, including the PV array, the wind turbine, it's subjected to different parameters, such as wind speed, solar radiance, and since we are optimizing the cost of it, we are also subjected to different constraints, including cost of a PV and cost of a wind turbine, and the capacity that a PV can emit, and the capacity that a wind turbine can emit. So the approach to build this model was first done by collecting all of the equations and also updating or inputting all of the input data collected from various resources into Excel files. From this, the equations and the input data were put into the GAM system, otherwise known as the General Algebraic Modeling System, just similar to programs such as like MATLAB for those of you familiar, or Python also. Now this data was used and uploaded into here, and through various maximization and minimization solvers, such as the Gurobi solver, the results were outputted in data in the form of Excel, in the form of charts, what I will explain later. So it's important to note that for our model, we considered a lifetime of the system being about 20 years. The total life cycle cost, as previously mentioned, is our objective function, and the general equation for this can be seen as the capital cost combined with the operational and maintenance cost. This all includes, as you can see here in the objective function, the TLCC for the PV was accounted for, along with the total life cycle cost for the wind turbine and the total life cycle cost for the battery. And right here, this equation on the bottom is pretty much the total life cycle cost, as you can see here, and this right here, divided by the total electricity. And the levelized cost of electricity is relevant because it shows the competitiveness of the model that you're making. So this is just a brief slide to show you what these equations look like. There are actually only 4 of the 18 equations that were used in the model. The model that was generated is considered to be a techno-economic model, techno representing all of the technological aspects such as a solar panel, wind turbine, or batteries, and economic representing all of the total life cycle costs, life cost of. The demand for our specific case study location, Natividad, was calculated by first multiplying the quantity times the nominal power rate, accounting for all of the quantity of the appliances, and then finding the total power, multiplying the total power by the overall time each application is on, and then yielding the daily consumption. And by taking the summation of the daily consumption and multiplying it times 20 houses that are inside our village, we were given a demand of 41.24 kilowatt hours per day for the small village of Natividad. Now the results that were generated can be seen here. There are about 10 different sheets of charts of results that are actually generated from the General Algebraic Modeling System. And the first one I'd like to talk about is the electricity generated by the PV system. Now this is relevant because you can see here that over a course of an entire year, our PV system is working. So it's receiving electricity and it's going to our battery. And you can also see here that this is the demand capacity, as previously mentioned, around 44. And if you see, this is about 304 hours. Obviously 24 hours fit more in a day, but you see here. Okay. And the battery discharge charge power represents that our model is working adequately. It's sizing to figure out what is the correct demand it needs for our particular village, and it's scheduling so that it can be turned on and off at the correct time. So in conclusion, this model is a solution for increasing renewable energy in Mexico. The levelized cost of electricity equated to about 26 cents per kilowatt hour, and the total life cycle cost equated to about $27,500. The capacity of the system ended up being about 16 solar panel cells that each hold a capacity of 8 kilowatts, with one battery that has a capacity of 13.5 kilowatt per hour. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for coming. I'll be receiving any questions.
Thank you so much, Lauren. So we'll go ahead and start the Q&A session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Really great project and presentation. Thank you so much. My question is, when you were doing the optimization and you decided to take out the diesel component, how do you think that affected your results?
Oh yes, so when I took out the diesel component, I can actually just go back really quick here to the equation. I actually had to include unsevered energy. So this is unserved energy that was not accounted for, as I mentioned, the diesel generator. And, excuse me, we just assumed it to be there, but it's a way of calculating how much energy is needed that otherwise the diesel generator should have produced. So in this way, we can kind of size our model into meeting that demand.
Any other questions?
Go ahead.
You mentioned there were several formulas. What narrowed it down to just these particular?
So I really wanted to emphasize the total life cycle cost of the model, since that's the objective of creating this model. Although the objective of creating the model is to supply energy, we also have to take into account how much money it costs, because figuring out who is going to be funding it, you want to try to optimize while minimizing costs. So I really wanted to represent all of the total life cycle costs of the entire system. So we're accounting for investment costs, maintenance costs, replacement costs, recovery costs, anything of that sort is represented in these equations.
And based on what you've calculated, do you think, is there a way to help this village get the electricity that they need?
Definitely. You can definitely see that it's very feasible. It's a feasible solution to this. In my future implications, I'm very interested in doing kind of a cost analysis to see how much would it cost to install these hybrid systems in different villages within Mexico, since there's a very high indigenous population there, compared to just wiping out their village and installing these huge wind turbines that have actually caused a lot of protest over the coming years. So yes, I am interested in trying to figure out how feasible this would be in terms of costs.
All right, thank you so much, Lauren. Have a great presentation.